It's been an interesting week and a half since President Trump has gone into power. And I got to tell you, he is acting very swiftly on a lot of his campaign promises. In fact, probably quicker than any other president has acted in the history of the United States. One of the things about President Trump is a lot of people just turn around and think he's just a blowhard. He's just all talk. But I'm going to tell you, the last week and a half, he has shown action. And right down from visiting, a lot of people that are destitute in North Carolina, going out to California, setting the record straight about what people need to get done. I agree with his narrative about fighting fire with water. Go figure. So, you know what? President Trump is actually doing a lot. He's talking to everybody in the world, and of course, the one thing that has everybody, the Canadians and the Americans, wondering what's going to happen is with our tariff situation. So President Trump has turned around and basically threatened Canada, saying, I'm going to put tariffs on Canada starting February 1st because you guys do not protect your border and you've got fentanyl leaking into our country. Now, as most Canadians, and I'm going to put myself into this mix, I'm going to say most Canadians agree with him that, Canada should protect their own border. So forget about, for a second, we can forget about the US and focus on Canada. As a Canadian, I would love our borders to be secure, going both directions. Okay. So quite frankly, we need to have secure borders. And the fact that it's been brought up by the president of the United States, it's not shocking. But our existing government, of course, they immediately say, well, we'll fight tariffs with tariffs. Look, you're not going to win that fight. But there is somebody, okay, in Canada, the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, that's actually had a very cool-headed approach. And I believe that she is on the right path. And here's what she had to say regarding this.
Today, U.S. President Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary nominee, Howard Lutnick, stated during his confirmation hearing that, quote, if we are your biggest trading partner, show us the respect, shut your border. This is a separate tariff to create action from Mexico and action from Canada. As far as I know, they are acting swiftly, and if they execute it, there will be no tariff. And if they don't, then there will be. Let me say it again. The one thing that we can do this week, in just the next couple of days, to have the best chance to avoid tariffs is to show clear and unequivocal action to secure the border. This should start with the appointment of a Canadian border czar to work with the new American border czar to jointly crack down hard on fentanyl and illegal migrants. Is this likely to end the threat of tariffs entirely? I don't think so. I think there'll be other things that we will need to work on, and we will do so. But I am convinced, after speaking with dozens of elected U.S. representatives, administration officials, and the president himself, that this is the most important first step. Today, I reiterated this to the premiers, Minister LeBlanc, Minister Wilkinson, and Prime Minister Trudeau, and I hope it is acted on by the end of this week before February 1st.
So, you know what, border czar, that would be great if Danielle Smith would put her hand for that. Now, one of the things I just want to reiterate as a Canadian is I'm sick and tired of our existing government. They are a bunch of pansies, useless, narcissistic, gaslighting a-holes that don't give a shit about Canada. And one of the biggest responses that we've seen as Canadians is them immediately going, okay, well, we're going to match tariffs to tariffs. You've got, a pro-road government behind Trudeau, and then he's trying to find somebody, he's talking Mark Carney. And all they want to do is talk about tariffs and financial measures with the tariffs, instead of saying, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we actually solve the problem? It is a problem. Whether they believe it or not, all Canadians should be safe. And yet, because the government, as bad and dysfunctional as they are sitting there saying, we're going to fight tariffs with tariffs. Oh, we're going to get money ready to give to Canadians. How about we don't even go down that far? You know what? What if you actually used some common sense, which isn't too common in the existing government, and turned around and said, fine, tell you what we're going to do. We are going to protect the borders. We're going to put some money behind it. Here you go. Here's an example. You know what? Show that we're going to increase the number of border guards. Show the fact that we are going to turn around and actually do what they've requested. And at that time, if they then spin around and do something else, then at least you can turn around, look them square in the eye. And as a Canadian, I can sit there and say, my government's doing everything they can for Canadians. Right now, they are doing nothing for Canadians, as they have done for the last 9 years. The replacement of Trudeau, flipping to Carney, that's even going to be worse. So all they're doing is they're sitting there saying, let's prepare for tariffs. As the Premier, Danielle Smith, had mentioned, yeah, could there be more tariffs in the future? Yes. But that's a different economic approach. Right now, we've been told, you know what? You're not safe. Well, you know what? If we actually look in our own backyard, probably we're not. And it's about time as Canadians, we had a government that represented Canadians, not themselves. And that's all that we've seen over the last few weeks with this situation. I hope Danielle Smith's right. I hope the fact that if we can prove to them that we're actually doing something, that we don't see tariffs February 1st. But it's now up to our government to actually do something about it. I challenge them to actually stand up for Canadians once in the last 9 years, because they haven't so far. But speaking of standing up for yourselves, you know what? It's one of the things that I always wrap up all my conversations with, is that you have to stand up for you. You have to stand up for your family, your friends, the next generation. It's something that we really encourage here all the time. I'm a proud Canadian. I know you are too if you're watching me. So one of the most important things as Canadians, it's time that we stand up and make sure finally the government does what they're supposed to. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Todd C. Slater.